Welcome back to another episode of Andrew Does. We're out here today asking people, should men and women be competing in sports? There's a lot of controversy over people transitioning from male to female and competing in sports and winning a lot of the times. We're going to see what people think. This is what Andrew does. Festivals. Today we're just asking people about men and women in sports and if they should compete against each other directly.
I think directly it would be a little uneven, although I do believe in equality, but the only thing is, like, obviously men are built a lot more differently when it comes to biologically, right? And when it comes to female, they're obviously not as I guess muscular and more, I guess, athletic than some men are, and it's kind of uneven. It's like the NBA, right? When you look at men and women, the men's are like, there's 7-foot men who are dunking and stuff like that, where, in basketball, I think now we have a couple of female that are actually dunking now, right? So there's a little uneven when they are going to be competing against each other, but co-ed sports, like, when they have like co-ed volleyball and stuff like that, those are amazing, I guess, right? Competing against each other, having them on your team and stuff like that.
Tennis as well, I think, is an example they can do that in.
Yep.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's all.
All right, thanks a lot, man. We're asking people if men and women should compete in sports against each other directly.
Sure, why not?
Don't you think it would be a little unfair?
No, some women are very strong. We have all African runners. If I come from Kenya, and the Kenyan runners are damn good. The women are very good runners, so hey.
Do you think that they would qualify against the men, though, in things like the Olympics?
Definitely.
Why not? Ladies are stronger than men too. Hello, ladies can give a birth to their babies. Why cannot they do anything else? They can do anything, and whatever they want, they can compete the boys.
You should visit Kenya. You should visit Kenya and see our runners from Kenya. The women are damn good.
I would if I could, definitely. But if we look at things like weightlifting or tennis or other sports like that.
Our Indian lady, she just won the champion in weightlifting. Yeah.
Over the men?
Yeah, over the men, the gold champion.
Okay, I'd have to look into that. How do we feel about men transitioning into women and then competing in women's sports?
I will definitely support ladies for that too.
So the men that become women and compete in their sports?
Yes, definitely.
Why not? Why not?
Because we're coming in a lot of situations where we're seeing that the men that transition into women are completely dominating those sports. Like, no, they're not. Well, we've had state...
Certain cultures they don't, but mostly nowadays everyone does.
I'm not saying that they don't do it. I'm saying that I'm asking if you think it's fair or not.
It is fair enough.
I think it's fair. If we are going to go into the territories where men are, why shouldn't men come up to the women? It's equality. So if you want equality, then it has to go both the ways.
That's a very fair point. So in cases like sprinting, powerlifting, wrestling, stuff like that, we've seen that the men who transition to women end up dominating those sports. So do you think that's fair?
Definitely.
Yes, it's fair. And I've seen women in Africa, hey man, they're good, they're damn good. Where I come from, we're one of the best runners in the world. I mean, all the gold medalists in the Olympics are won by Kenyans and East Africans. So, hey, more power to men and women to be equal.
Okay, anything else you guys want to add?
Nope, that's it.
I think we should be all supporting ladies more than what men, because men's are doing it, we all know. But ladies are kind of like need more of the sports from men's, and we should be supporting them.
How do we do that?
We should be just helping with whatever they want. They should get more of the fitness. They should join the more fitness, because ladies, they're kind of like behind, oh no, it's kind of like shying, but they should be going and they're working out, and they should go for all the activities and out there.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. Thanks a lot, ladies.
Thank you.
Have a good day. It's a little hot out today. I'll try to survive. Thank you. So in this case, men going to dominate, trans athletes are going to dominate, doesn't matter. I mean, if you're going to say that it's fair, then all power to you. If you believe it's fair and you're okay with the women's sports getting completely dominated and destroyed, then I guess you're okay with it.
Yeah, sure enough. Why not? I mean, it's gender equality, and there's no disadvantage of facing another colleague.
So what about in like combat sports like wrestling, mixed martial arts, football, anything like that? Do you think that would be fair?
Of course, if the candidate is strong enough, and if he or she is talented, the question is why not, right? And you're competing for the championship, and the championship means for everyone, so it should be equal.
True, true. Okay, what about cases where men have transitioned into women? gender-wise, do you think they should be allowed to compete in female-only sports? It's a tough question, I know.
Next.
Whistling at people uncontrollably. Toronto, silver guys on bikes whistling at people. All right. Hit that bass. Hit that bass. Okay, today we're out here asking people if they think men and women should compete directly in sports against each other.
Sure. Why not?
So what about do you think men should be allowed to go into women's leagues and play in those?
There should be maybe a dedicated league to having co-ed type leagues. So you could have women's alone, you could have men's alone, you could have co-ed. And for participants who want to participate in co-ed, let them participate in co-ed.
True, true. So what about in situations where we've had men transition into women and complete and dominate in their sports? Do you have any opinion on that?
Oh, that's a great line, but it depends on what they identify themselves with. If society and themselves identify themselves as a certain gender, they should be able to participate in that gender's league or co-ed.
For sure. So in situations where we have like combat sports, for example, or watch out behind you. In combat sports, we've had in like mixed martial arts and wrestling and sprinting. We've had the people that transition into women, sometimes setting state records, regional records, stuff like that, and dominating those spaces. Do you think that's a problem, or do you think it's just something we're gonna have to deal with?
It's just something that we had to roll with. It's just part of the transition. It's part of us getting used to something maybe a bit different, but it's just something we just got to get used to.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
No, thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
No problem.
Have a good day.
You too.
See, the thing I see as a problem with that is if we're just getting used to it, then we're just going to be getting used to getting women out of their own spaces. If we start allowing people to come in and dominate in women's sports, yes, we can respect their gender identity and everything, and we can respect that they're women now. But if there's a biological disadvantage through muscle mass, through bone structure, and through testosterone, I don't think that's necessarily fair for the women. But that's just me. I'm not sure what's going on in this video, but I'm definitely going to buy the Blu-ray of it when I get home. On it. Because we've had situations like in wrestling, powerlifting, sprinting like that, where the people who transition immediately dominates the sport and start setting state records and stuff like that. You have any opinion on that?
As long as they're honest, I mean, yes, emotionally they feel that they're women, and once again, like I said, talent goes a long way, but it's a very tough question.
I'm not questioning what their identity is or anything like that. I'm just questioning whether it's fair, because if they've lived a certain amount of time as a man, or they have more testosterone in their system from the hormones that they're on, we've seen cases where the majority of them that do go over to women's sports are dominating in them. Especially in ones that are just head-to-head, like sprinting, wrestling, stuff like that. You're looking to stay away from this one, aren't you?
I'll stay with this. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, man. Have a good day. Can't get them all.
Oh, what is it about?
Today we're just asking people if they think men and women should compete directly in sports against each other.
I don't think so. Because even though I strongly advocate that men and women should be treated equally.
For sure.
I think like in terms of their bodies, it's just made up differently. It's just like why women are the ones giving birth instead of the men. They're fundamentally different in terms of their physical bodies, and I think it would be very unfair if they were to compete against each other, even though I'm a strong advocate that women and men should be treated equally.
For sure, very true. So what about in cases where, thank you. So in cases where we've had men transition into women and compete in their sports, talking about things like wrestling, sprinting, and powerlifting, the people who have transitioned into women have shown overwhelmingly that they've been dominating in those sports. Now, do you think that should be allowed, or do you think we should figure out another way to let them compete, or how do you feel about that?
I think I'm neutral on that because if they choose to become women, we should respect their decision and they should be treated as women. We shouldn't discriminate them in any way, but the fact that they're fundamentally different in terms of their body makeup, I'm neutral on that matter. I don't think I know enough about that field. Well, I don't know enough about these surgeries to have a say.
No, that's fair, completely fair. Did you have an opinion you want to share?
Yeah, I agree with my girlfriend Michelle. It's like boxing. Like they have different classification, like different weight. So like I think it's the same in terms of like men and women competing. It's a different.
In terms of like testosterone and body mass and everything?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Very cool. All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank
Those
you.
just balloons, don't worry.
Yeah.
Channel's called Andrew Does, DOES.
Okay.
So it's same on Instagram if you want to check it out.
Cool.
Okay, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
What did we learn here today? Well, I am a little concerned at how many people are willing to bring men into women's sports. I think we would run into a problem with that really quickly, having women's sports completely dominated by men. Because let's be honest, in places like wrestling, sprinting, powerlifting, the records for women are nowhere close to what they are for men. So if we start bringing men into these sports and into these spaces, first of all, it would cause a whole lot of problems just administratively and logistically like that. But then we're all of a sudden eliminating women from sports that they were in, that they've worked so hard to get to there. And then all of a sudden, there's no place for them to go in the sport. So that's just how I feel about it. In terms of trans people trans men transitioning into women's sports, I think we should have to go with the testosterone levels that match the women who are currently in that sport. Again, I'm no scientician, but that's just what I think. Remember, do what I say, not as I do. This is another episode of Andrew Does. And it's hot. It wasn't hot before, now it's hot. I couldn't say it wasn't hot before, but it's definitely hot now.